Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Katie.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Katie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and what made you open to being on a podcast? Yeah, I usually have to pitch a lot of people, so this is like really nice that someone is keen and like, yeah, let's go.
Well, I had heard through the grapevine that you do this podcast and you've been interviewing a few people from work, and then we were having a quick little chat about it and you asked if I would come on, and I was like,
and you just
why
signed
not?
it on the spot.
Yeah,
And we're
why
like,
not?
here we are.
I mean, I've never done an interview or a podcast before, so I like listening to podcasts, so I thought it would be nice
amazing.
To be
On
behind the
one.
camera.
Yeah.
On one instead of
You can listen to this episode when it's released. How's that?
I'm sure I will.
Okay, sounds good. And so what is your sort of 1 minute introduction about what you do?
Yeah, so I work in KPMG in People and Change Consulting. I'm a graduate there, so I started this year. I studied Human Resources and International Relations and Spanish at UQ. Yeah.
That's very awesome. Cool. So we really want to see how you got to where you are. So we're going to go right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So Katie, tell me, what kind of child were you like growing up?
It was weird. I was a mix between being a very shy, timid kid, but I also loved doing drama and performing and acting.
Ooh.
So I think it was I lacked a little bit of confidence maybe when it came to like doing like sports and maths and things like that. But yeah, I started doing drama I think when I was about 6, and that was a big part of my childhood growing up. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting balance, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're performing and you're feeling so alive but so scared at the same time?
Yeah, not necessarily scared while I was performing, probably in the lead up to it. But I think more in my life I was a bit more happy to kind of take the back seat and sort of I was a bit more like shyer in school settings and things like that.
Yeah, that's cool. And did you have siblings growing up?
Yeah, so I had a younger sister. Well, I have a younger sister,
so
Tara.
Big sister.
Big sister. Just the two of us, and we grew up in Cairns. So yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful place to grow up. I think at the time I was always like, oh, Cairns is so boring. But in retrospect, it's a beautiful place. You've got the beach, you've got the mountains, you've got rivers everywhere, and it's quite a relaxed, laid-back lifestyle, which was nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how did you sort of fit in the school environment? Were you a popular kid? Were you not that academic, sporty a little bit? Or?
I don't think I wasn't popular, definitely not in primary school, I don't think. I think that's largely because I wasn't very sporty. Yeah. And I think when you're in that primary school age, sports is a big part of school, I guess. So I had my friends, which was fun, but I wasn't super popular. Academically, I was okay, I think. It was sort of when I went to high school that I kind of found my groove a little bit more.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got a bit more into drama and performing, and then made some really good friends through that. And then sort of found, I guess, my passions when it came to education in terms of what I was studying, and so that was really, really interesting. And so high school's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so in high school, when you're thinking about the future, what were the other options like floating through your mind? Yeah,
so I did want to be an actor.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like,
classic, cliche.
Yeah.
So that was something I was working towards. And I was also interested quite a bit in people and the world around me, and like history and things like that, which I think sort of influenced my choice of studying international relations at uni. But I think, for at least the first few years of high school, I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do except maybe try to be an actor.
Yeah. Did you take some steps towards the acting career? I mean, it's not too late.
It's not too late, no. I actually did audition. This is very embarrassing. I actually did audition.
It's amazing.
For the QT acting degree that you can do here.
Yeah.
I think it's very competitive. They only accept
dang
20
it.
people.
Yeah.
And I was very young when I auditioned. I think I was only 16.
Yeah.
And didn't get that one. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise, I think, because it sort of led me to the path of where I am now. And I definitely don't think I want to be an actor now. So,
oh, really? Why is that?
I think I just don't have the passion for it anymore. I think that I had when I was younger. I really enjoy the work that I'm doing now, and I think I like being able to, I guess, work with people more one-on-one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And work as a team a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And what about your parents? What did they want you to do? Were they like, yeah, Katie the actor?
Yeah, they were actually. They were
so
great.
nice.
They were really. They just wanted me to do whatever I wanted to do, which I feel really lucky to have had. But my granddad is actually an actor, so so they were very like, yeah, sure, like follow, like it was a normal career path, I guess, for them. So they thought that it was good, and it was actually my mum who suggested international relations when I was like, oh, I'm not sure what else I should do, and she'd read about the course because I'd never heard of it before applying, and she was like, this sounds like something you would be good at and you'd find interesting, and I was like, yeah. So I applied for that.
Yeah, that's cool. And then also, so what was your degree? You sort of did 2 degrees? Or
So
was it...
I started out at UQ doing a Bachelor of International Studies, and within that you have to major in 2 majors, and I majored in Spanish and International Relations.
Yeah.
And after, I think it was after a year of that, I was like, I'm not really sure if, like, I feel so completely fulfilled doing this 1 degree. I was like, I feel like something's missing, I'm not really sure. It was only also a 3-year degree, and
it was a bit short.
I did feel a bit short at the time, and my birthday's in November, so I was quite young. I was like 17 for my whole first year of uni, basically. And so I was like, I still feel quite young, like I'm not really sure if I want to graduate in 3 years. And there's also not very many jobs you can get with just an international relations degree. And then I just did some research with what UQ offered and found human resources. And I was like, oh, that sounds like something I feel like I'd be pretty good at. Like, I'm quite good at talking to people, and like I enjoy kind of dealing with people and things like that. So I switched my degree to a dual degree with a Bachelor of Business Management, majoring in HR, and then Arts.
The lengthy title now.
Yeah, the lengthy fancy title. And then Bachelor of Arts, majoring in International Relations and Spanish, so I could carry across most of my credits, which was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And tell me more about HR and international relations. So was there a big overlap in it, or is there one that you were leaning more towards?
So there's not really a big overlap. Not really. International relations is fascinating. It's a lot of critical thinking, a lot of essay writing. It's a bit funny kind of looking back. They'd make us write essays on, solve the Cold War in 1,000 words and things like that, which obviously is
wow, damn.
very intense for like 18-year-olds to be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of history of the world and the way people think and the way that countries interact, and even just the way that the world is the way it is right now.
Yeah.
Which I think provided just a good basis of current affairs, and just even, as I said, kind of how people think. So it sort of relates to HR in the sense where it's a little bit more kind of psychology based without being psychology at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think you would like psychology?
I think I would, yeah.
Oh.
I am always fascinated by the way that people work, and why people do the things they do. I was just never really drawn to full psychology, but there are aspects of it which I get to use in my job that I like. So
yeah, it has a bit of maths and stats in it. You
yes,
like
I
it?
think no, that's probably what took me away at it. I remember having a few friends at uni who studied psychology, and when I was like, oh, I want to kind of add something to my international relations, they're like, what about psychology? And they're telling me about all like the stats and the maths.
I was so surprised. I was like, what? Yeah.
Like, why? Like, and I was like, oh, maybe not for me.
Yeah.
It was just the theories and and the people side of it, maybe not so much the stats, but. Yeah, and then the human resources was a lot more kind of business, I guess practical, sort of what you'd kind of expect. So they complemented each other quite nicely because, you know, on one hand I'd be doing analytical stuff and business heavy, and then on the others it would be a lot more like critical thinking, like more conceptual. Like, so,
and did you have a preference? If you had to choose one.
To choose one. That's actually really tough because both of them had really good aspects and then really bad aspects. So they like worked really well together because like some, you know, if I got sick of one side of it, I'd just start working on the other side.
Yeah, that's so good to take a break from one another.
Yeah, so I think I found like the assessment with international relations quite difficult because there's a specific way that they want you to write, there's a specific way that you structure your essays and everything that I kind of struggle to wrap my head around sometimes. Yeah. And then whereas I found the business assessment a little bit more straightforward because it's kind of writing reports and things like that. But then I found the content to be a little bit more engaging in my international relations.
Yeah,
versus,
that's hard. Easy life, go HR
Yeah,
more.
well, yeah, I guess possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And then let's talk about jobs and stuff. So I saw on your LinkedIn the humble beginnings at McDonald's. Yes, was that your first ever job?
It wasn't actually.
Oh, okay.
It was. I worked at a cafe near my house when I was 13, I think.
Oh wow, so young.
It was, I guess it was young at the time, but I think I just was, you know, bored on the weekends. And I wanted
more
to
like
work
wanted
there.
some cash.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to buy lollies or whatever I bought when I was little. And I got paid $10 an hour, cash in hand.
Exciting.
Very exciting.
Hopefully legal.
I don't think it was, actually, looking back. But no, it was a good time. It kind of led to me getting employed at McDonald's eventually. A couple of years later after that. I worked at McDonald's for, I want to say 2.5 years in Cairns. It was a good experience. It teaches you a lot, I think, working at McDonald's. Do
you have any funny stories from the early days? Surely a lot of rude customers now. Wouldn't that scare you?
You get a lot. I used to get a little bit like, take it personally, I guess, a little bit, but then you would just laugh with your co-workers about it, and then it becomes a funny story. I remember this one time because I used to work the drive-through a lot, and my mum grew up in Spain, so I speak a little bit of Spanish.
Oh, that's awesome! That's why you chose Spanish.
I was like, I can get an easy seven. I did not.
Yeah, it's actually a lot harder to study.
So much harder, like studying a language than just like speaking it at home kind of casually. But people would always try to prank you in the drive-through. Like they'd just be people, and then just like when they're placing their order, like sometimes they'd be like, "Can I have a Big Mac?" and then scream or something, like just weird, stupid stuff. It was just the dumbest thing. And this one time, I think I'd been at McDonald's for like 1.5 years, so I kind of, you know, was used to it. And this car pulls up to the drive-through, and they're all like giggling and laughing. I'm like, oh, here we go. And they place their order in Spanish. And I think, you know, they're trying to like just play a prank or whatever. And I just replied in straight back Spanish. I was like, yep, anything else? And then just like, no. And they came around to the side and they were like, oh, you understood us? And I was like, yeah, like, you know, was this your order? And they were like, yeah. I think that was probably a great moment because it felt nice to like subtly hit back at the
and so
annoying
professional,
customers.
Right?
I was like, you know, you're trying to prank us, I'll join in or whatever.
It's so funny. Like, do you get pranked more in the driveway than at the front counter? 100%.
Because people, it's like you're hiding behind.
Yeah, is it because first they order at that speaker, which is not where you are, and then you come through, and then
and they'll just say dumb things in the drive-through, but Yeah. It was good. Yeah, they teach you a lot about, I don't know, just, about like working as a team when you work somewhere like Macca's.
Yeah. Is there a lot of pressure?
Yeah, just like normal hospitality. I think
Yeah.
people who work in hospitality kind of know that there's always a pressure to get the food out at a certain time.
Yeah.
So
did you have a favourite role in Macca's?
Role.
Flipping the burgers, frying the chips.
I never actually got to flip the burgers.
Oh, sorry for your loss.
I know. I wanted to. I wanted to get there, but I was more of a front counter drive-through person. I enjoyed drive-through, I think.
Yeah.
It was the time would go past very fast because you'd just be dealing with so many people.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you said that growing up you were quite timid. So how did that shock you, when did you sort of crawl out of your shell, if you think you have?
I think it was probably high school. I think I found kind of like a good group of friends, and I just sort of...
that's so important.
Yeah, and I think I just sort of like learnt more about the world, and I don't know, just kind of came out of my shell a little bit more. I'm still a little bit shy sometimes, but not as shy as I was, I think, in primary school when I was younger.
Yeah, that's cool. And then take me to your next job. What was that? Something about in Peru embassy or...
Yeah,
but that's probably not sequential. So you can...
Yeah, my next job. So I moved to Brisbane.
Oh, when was that?
So that was for uni in 2017. So I graduated high school and then went straight to uni the next year down in Brisbane.
Was that a tough decision to move?
No.
You were sick of Cairns at that point.
I was sick of Cairns, I think. And there's not that many opportunities to go and study what I wanted to study in Cairns. So it was kind of like the logical next step. It was still like scary, like leaving home, but I was lucky enough that I went to college on campus. So
how's that? Pretty wild. Hello.
It was fun. It was definitely kind of different to anything that I'd obviously experienced in Cairns, and I enjoyed the independence of like being away from home. But it was good. And then my next job was I was a resident mentor at my college. So I'd been at college for a year, and then the next year I applied to like live on a floor with all the first years who were coming that year to kind of help mentor them and support them. Nice. Yeah, so that was that job. And then, did you go to UQ?
Yeah.
Do you remember Physio?
Physio, no, what's that?
It was like a food court.
Oh, the Fizz Caf? No.
Yeah, it's where that, I think so. Fizz Caf, or like where that used to be. Or where that, it was like I worked there, so it was like a...
Did you work on the roll? No.
And then so that was with UQ Union, so they own like a number of food outlets and drink outlets on campus.
So at the Physio, what kind of like food were you guys selling?
It was like hot chips and burgers, and again I was like at the front counter, so people would come, and that was a pretty good job. I was there for a few months and then moved to On a Roll Bakery. At UQ, which if anyone goes to UQ, I'm sure they know it. I loved it there actually. The people were awesome. It was so much fun. The pay was really good as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, UQ pays very nicely.
I was very pleasantly surprised. And no weekend work, which for hospitality is incredible. And that was an awesome experience. And I stayed there until I graduated, pretty much.
Oh, really?
So I was there for...
that good?
Yeah, it was that good. I kind of jumped in and out of the bakery a little bit. I worked in HR a little bit within UQ Union.
That's perfect.
And then went back to the bakery after that for a little bit. But my embassy internship, so that was, sorry, I feel like we're jumping all around the place. That was through my Spanish major. They had a relationship, the school, with some Latin American embassies. We knew that was coming. With some Latin American embassies in Canberra. And so I applied for that, and they gave us, I think, $1,000 for 3 weeks to live in Canberra and work at the embassies, and I got the embassy of Peru. So that was, that was interesting.
How was that experience? Did you feel like, yeah, this is where I see my future?
See, I didn't. It was good in the sense that I was like, I don't know if I want to work in the international relations field anymore.
And that's why you sort of veered more towards HR.
I think so, yeah. It was just a lot of politics, a lot of bureaucracy. There were some really cool moments. Like, it was a very small embassy because Peru's they've got quite a small footprint in Australia. And so it was just the ambassador and the person working below him, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I got kind of a lot of hands-on experience. I think at one point they had a United Nations OECD meeting regarding women's rights, which was incredible to go to. I loved that. But I was like representing the Peruvian embassy, and I was like sitting at this table. I was 18. I was so young. Sitting at this table with this little placard that was like, Katie Duckworth, Peruvian Embassy of Peru. Yeah. Like the blondest, whitest girl you've ever seen. And they're surrounded by all these, proper diplomats and it's like their jobs. And I just remember sitting at this table. I'm like, okay, I cannot say anything stupid.
Yeah.
I cannot say, moving around, yes. Yeah, like taking down notes. And the entire time I was like having the biggest sense of like, I don't belong here.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah. But it was experiences like that which were really fun. But I kind of was like, I'm not sure if I feel the same passion for working in an embassy per se as I did for some other things. So I kind of started working towards the HR and consulting side of my degree.
Yeah, that's cool. And then the Deloitte Insider program.
Yeah, that was fun. that was a throwback. So I'd heard through a friend at college about consulting work. I had literally never heard of KPMG, Deloitte, or anything like that until I started uni. And I thought, that sounds interesting. I like the idea of kind of doing people and change sort of consulting. And by the time I'd heard about it, I think the only thing I could apply for was the Deloitte
That's so
program.
Funny. Yeah.
And so I applied to that, and I think at that point there probably weren't a lot of people who were who knew about it or who were kind of in the people and change. I think they call it human capital over there.
Okay, that's fancy.
Yeah, it was very fancy.
Yeah.
Sphere. So I was lucky enough to go visit their offices for a day, just kind of get to know what it was about. And that was like a big turning point for me, because it was my first experience, sort of first-hand of knowing what consultants do,
and the corporate world.
And the corporate world as well. I was like,
the fancy.
I know. I was
buildings.
like, this is different to Cairns, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was like, I came back from that, and I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to work in this environment doing consulting, and so I'm really grateful to that experience, because it basically led to where I am now. So,
that's awesome. And then you applied to be a vacationer at KPMG.
Yes, I did. So I was having a look at all the big 4 firms and then some of the other consulting companies to see, what they did and what I could apply for. And KPMG obviously had people and change. And I was like, that sounds really interesting. And I was reading about it, and I thought this kind of aligns with exactly what I want to do. My degree as well, luckily, and applied for that, and was really lucky to get it. And this was all happening during COVID as well, like 2020, the first year of COVID. So no one was really sure if the VACI programs were going to go ahead, like what was happening with that. But they did a really good job managing all the uncertainties. And
you were still able to come to the office, everything was fine.
Yeah, it was. So we started towards the end of 2020 as VACIs, and at that point restrictions had sort of eased a little bit, so I think everyone had only just started coming back into the office.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so we came back. I think there was 1 week where there was a lockdown in Brisbane, which was kind of fun because I was like, I get to try working from home for a week. And then we were all back in the office, so it was really good timing. Really lucky.
Yeah, that's cool. And what kind of work did you do as a vackie / forward to now? Did you really get your hands dirty?
See, at the time I thought I did, but looking back, oh my god, you kind of really didn't do all that much. I think, looking back, it was a lot of kind of like BD stuff, so like proposal developing and making slides look pretty.
Yeah, important skills.
Important skills, just kind of, I guess, more skills that aren't life or death, I suppose.
Yeah.
When it comes to the...
Opposed to now.
Very important. I guess, because it's hard when you're a vackie. One thing I will say is just because you're there for such a short amount of time, you don't get the whole viewpoint of like a project from start to finish. And so you'd kind of be like dipping your toes in little things. But it was good because you just sort of learn a little bit about what everyone does. You kind of get to have a look through a bunch of different proposals, and I think I did a little bit of project work on a client, which was exciting because you get like a glimpse into how, what a day looks like, I suppose. Whereas nowadays, because I'm obviously working full time, if you get put on a project, you often start it from the start and you'll go through it until the end. So and you have like more set roles within the project. So they'll be like, okay, you're in charge of doing this, you're in charge of doing that. So it's, I guess, you're a lot more involved, obviously, as you will be when you're working in it.
That's awesome. And currently we do have a couple of vacationers floating around.
Do.
So do you have any advice? They're like, how do I stand out? How do I make the most of it? And I'm like, Katie, let's go.
It is interesting actually having the vackies here. It's weird. It feels like I was only just a vackie.
It's just like a year ago.
So. So it's really nice having them here. Advice, I think, it's so cliche, but just like slow down and enjoy it and just be yourself. I think the most, like, people want to know you and they want to get to know how you can work with them and how you'd work with the team. Like, there's a lot of things that can be taught in terms of hard skills, like just even like consulting things and just the way you address a client issue and things like that. Whereas there's a lot of other softer personality skills and emotional skills that can't always be taught, and I think that is a big thing that they're looking for, because people who have that inherently within them tend to perform well, I suppose. So that'd be my advice. And just, I remember when I was vackie being very, like, not stressed, but being very like, I hope I'm doing okay. Like, I hope I'm good enough. Yeah, I hope I'm good enough. Like, rethinking every conversation I've had, sort of thing. And I wish I could just go back in time and be like, relax, like, enjoy it. This is as much you figuring out if you want to work here as it is them figuring out, if they want to work with you. And at the end of the day, you're only here for 7-8 weeks. Try and make the most of it. So,
that's cool. And what's it like being a grad now? Is there that still lingering, am I good enough, that imposter syndrome?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Or is it stronger, less?
I'd say it's less. I think that's a big part of that, is that I've become a lot more comfortable with seeking feedback and seeking it regularly as well. So I'm kind of, if there is something that I can do to improve my work or whatever, I'm confident enough to be able to ask for advice on that and get improvement on it. And I am sort of able to separate it from, like, if something goes wrong.
Not taking it personally.
Yeah, not taking it personally. And if something goes wrong, I think it's because working this year, you sort of realise things go wrong all the time, and so like the first time something goes wrong, it's like the end of the world.
Deal.
But then, you know, the third time something goes wrong that week, you're like, oh, you know, it's just
sooner or later.
Sooner or later, it's just the nature of the work that we do. But yeah, I think just I've sort of realised that like the stakes are a little bit lower, I guess, and sort of relaxing into it a little bit more. But I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's cool. Another thing that vacationers always worry about is the socialising aspect and the networking. How do I do this? How do I do that? Do you have a lot of nerves when it comes to networking, or how would you sort of?
I do get nervous if there's no one else that I know in like a room or in an event. I'll just sort of be like, oh, okay, I need to introduce myself. But as soon as there's one person I know, I feel a lot more comfortable. It's almost like having a safety net. Yeah. But I guess like any advice for networking and things like that, especially for vaccies, when it comes to meeting people, everyone is just so excited to meet you and everyone's so excited to hang out with you and get to know you. So, I mean, any nerves that you have shouldn't really be there. Like, I mean, I know logically they shouldn't, but, you know, nerves will always show up. But just... yeah, like everyone's I've met has been super friendly, and everyone just wants to make sure that the vaccies have the best experience that they can. And so, yeah, it's socialising is a big part of our job, and it's honestly one of the parts that I love the best. Yeah. So, yeah, it can be a really enjoyable part of the work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me more about People and Change. Would you say like 50% is meetings? Or is that too much?
Ooh, it really does depend on the project. Currently I'm on a project where it's probably like 60% meeting. But that's just the way that we're working currently. But People and Change it's a relatively new function of management consulting. We focus on kind of aligning psychology and human factors into improving the way that people are led, managed, and kind of hired or whatever within organisations. So there's a lot of change management, which is something that is actually becoming more and more important and on the radar of our clients, because they're realising that, you know, you can't just bring a big change on a organisation without there being some sort of mitigations in place for managing that change. And so that's sort of where we step in. It's a lot of workplace relations, just like skilling and it's really interesting work.
Do you help them with like how to recruit people, that kind of thing, or like?
No, not necessarily. So we have the human resources advisory function of MC.
I was like, damn.
Yeah, we used to be together, but then I think about a year and a half ago they separated us. So they tend to do sort of more of the hard HR optimization kind of stuff. We are a little bit more, I suppose, psychology/strategic based, I would say. So yeah, we focus a little bit less on the hiring, and more kind of potentially on like skills gaps and things like that. Just thinking back on the projects that I've done, and like preparing people for like learning and training. So yeah,
that's cool. And what do you love most about your job, and what do you not love so much about your job?
Most about my job. I love our team. Like, our team in Brisbane is incredible. Love everyone that I work with, and I love like connecting with the clients and the stakeholders. So we do a lot of stakeholder meetings and like interviewing people to find out about their jobs and what they do and how their jobs and their training and everything around that can be improved. And I find that really rewarding, because I'm quite a curious person, and you find out a lot about other people's lives and their jobs, and I really enjoy the fact that they are that we do get to work with a lot of different clients from different industries and sectors. So you kind of become like an expert in all these little areas for a few weeks while you're on the project, which is really interesting. And the part I like least, we do a fair bit of work on Excel. Every now and then, and I personally hate Excel. I don't really like it. I understand its function, and I understand obviously that it is a great tool. I just think I need to wrap my head around it a little bit more. But yeah, I think that would be it.
Yeah, that's cool. So what kind of stuff do you on Excel? I'm surprised you guys need it.
We do. Well, we do a lot of our data analysis on it. So we'll collect collect notes and data from the stakeholders that we interview, and then kind of track it all in Excel documents and sort of output that sometimes.
Fun.
Just kind of classic Excel stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you know what kind of person would be suited to people and change? Like, how does someone decide, this is probably a job that I'd like to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think someone who definitely likes dealing with people, obviously. Someone who likes to get to the bottom of why people do the things that they do.
Yeah, psychologist,
That's
an alternative pathway.
Yeah, exactly. As well as someone who's interested in solving workplace issues in the sense of like how can we optimize our staff to do better and to enjoy their work. I think, someone who finds passion in that. And obviously you have to learn to love PowerPoint. So that's a lot of what we do.
Do you guys use Word doc much?
We don't. I am on a project currently that does use Word a lot, but that's because the client prefers to use Word. Which I'm struggling with because I'm so used to PowerPoint.
I thought it'd be easier in Word.
No, it's actually not, because I find PowerPoint is easier to like design, and it's easier to kind of move things about on the slide. Whereas Word is a lot more rigid,
you can wreck the whole format,
and you can't really like see everything on the page at the same time as you can with PowerPoint. So,
Fair enough. And then since you've only been at this job for like 10 or so months, but what are the sort of common problems that crop up and the common solutions? Is it mainly like a communication thing, or
like within the team or within clients,
like for the clients generally when they approach you?
Approach us. It is
Sorry
so
to put you on the
varied.
spot.
No, a lot of the time they are trying to look towards the future. So they've got something that's coming in the future, or there's projects that they want to invest in the future, and they want to figure out how that is going to impact their current staff, and they want to figure out what the gaps are between the current state and the future state of their staff. So that could involve, how do we train our staff to deal with this change that's coming? How do we upskill our staff? How do we manage the change? Like, how do we ensure that people are prepared and are happy to be a part of this change journey with us? I think a lot of it is kind of that strategic future point of how do we get from A to B, and how do we manage the people through that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now on to another topic. So hobbies. Tell me more about hobbies. You can choose anyone that, the one that we're going to talk about later, but up to you.
Hobbies. I really, the classic, love reading. I really like reading.
Oh, do you have any favourite authors?
Oh, I really like, there's an Australian author called Jane Harper. She did a very famous book called The Dry. So it's kind of like Australian murder mysteries in a way, but they have like a human element to them as well.
But it's like human nature.
Human nature.
Probably what you love.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah.
The more complex, the
more complex,
the better.
And they're all set in like the Australian outback or in rural environments, which is really, really cool. I really like reading. I love just like on the weekends going to the markets with my friends. Going to the gym with my friends as well.
Yeah.
And traveling. I unfortunately COVID has kind of put a little bit
Yeah.
of a stop on that, but I'm keen for some more travel to kick off soon. So
Yeah, that's cool. And then F1.
F1, yes. So Karen knows I'm a pretty big Formula One fan. I think, like a lot of people, I started watching the TV show Drive to Survive during COVID. I just remember seeing it and I was like, look, I've got nothing else to do. I'll just put on this random show, not thinking that I would like it as much as I do. And then got all my friends into it, and we went to the Grand Prix this year.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the Melbourne one next year as well. That's one of my favourite things to watch throughout the year as well. So
yeah, that's cool. And then you and your friends got into it at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
we got into it
that's
at the same
kind of
time.
nice.
Yeah, so I started watching this show, and I was like to them, guys, you need to watch this show. You'll really like it. And at first they were all like, what do you mean, like cars, like
Yeah.
like I don't know. And then I think because the Netflix show, it's quite sensational.
Yeah.
They probably make up quite a few of the feuds or whatever.
Yeah.
But they show, a lot of the characters behind Formula One. So when you're looking at the screen, you're not just seeing, like when you're watching a race, you're not just seeing
The people
the
element.
cars, and the people. You're seeing the people within the cars and the people behind the teams and everything. And I think that really helped people connect to the story of Formula One a lot more, and so that helped my friends and I to get into it as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what was it like watching it in person? Was it like?
Oh my god, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was because you can watch it on the TV, but you have no physical idea of how fast they go.
Yeah.
And then you're watching them in person, and it's like, oh my god, like they just go past. Literally, if you blink, you'll miss it. And the sounds and the atmosphere, it was great.
So you got into it more after watching it in person?
Yeah. I think I did, yeah, because I was like, okay, this is what it's like to go watch them race. So yeah,
that's awesome. Cool. And we're nearly at the end of the podcast, so just a few more quick questions. The deep one: what do you think the meaning of life is for you?
Meaning of life for me. This is such a good question. I think it's just to find like a purpose in what you're doing and be content with that. Whether that's working or whether that's raising a family. Just kind of understanding that there's only so much you can do as one person in this world, but maybe is there a meaning to life? Who knows? But if you find your own meaning to life, like finding your own purpose and following that, and I think that is kind of to me what the meaning of life is. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just find your own meaning. There's no
so.
kind of intrinsic meaning.
I'm just like, we don't know why humans ended up here, so I guess it's just kind of building that meaning for yourself and finding content with where you are.
Yeah, that's awesome. The second question is, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you do differently about your life?
So many things.
That money,
what would I do differently about my life? I would probably stress less about the future. I think I'd just be like, who cares? Bought my house, don't have to worry about anything. I definitely donate more to charity than I think I already do if I won the lottery, and try to help people a little bit more. And I'd probably also go to a lot more fancy restaurants.
Oh, are you a fine dining girl?
I do love my food.
Do you have any favourites that you recommend?
I love Same in Brisbane. Have you been there before?
No, is it just like spelled like same?
Same. It's a Thai restaurant on James Street. Delicious, incredible. I loved it. And there's a place called Greca as well at Howard Smith Wharves.
Oh.
And they do this dish called it's like a saganaki. I probably wrong the pronunciation, but it's like a Greek cheese, and they fry it with honey and herbs drizzled on top. Incredible. would
sounds delicious.
recommend those.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. I wish it was sponsored.
Yeah, and would you say that generally you're quite an anxious, stressful person, or because you seem like you're super calm, but I'm like, I can imagine that it could be the outside calm, but the inside stress.
Yeah, I am quite probably like an anxious, stressful person. I think possibly all those years of drama have enabled me to internalize when I am stressed about something. I tend to get stressed about things very quickly, but then get over it fairly quickly as well. If that makes sense. So it's like a lot of little stressful situations, but then I kind of like move past them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that because you can get like easily change focus, like get distracted maybe? Or
I think so, or I just my brain has had a little bit more time to process things and be like, okay, no, this isn't actually something you need to worry about. But yeah, there are some things that I tend to kind of overthink and stress about, which I think is fairly normal.
Do you have any favourite de-stressing kind of activities or ways to get over things?
Reading is a great one for me. Yeah, because I get sucked in and I don't think about my life as I am, in this book. Another one would be exercising as well.
That's
just because you're focusing on how much you don't want to be exercising. You don't have as much time to stress about things, and even just talking to my friends. Because it helps put things into perspective.
That's true. Do you know what your Myers-Briggs personality type is?
Oh, is that what are the
16 personality types? Can send you a link after.
Yeah,
I love collecting
I've definitely done it before, but I can't remember what's yours.
ENFP, but it doesn't mean anything, right? Because you have to. It's just like it just sounds like 4 letters.
Definitely
but you
done
have to,
mine.
dig into it.
I think I'm.
We'll get it for sure.
Yeah, we'll get it for sure. I've definitely done it, but I can't remember. I need to record it somewhere. So
sounds good. Cool. And then the final question is, what is an ideal day in the life for you? It can be work-related, it can be non-work-related, maybe add in a bit of fine dining in there.
I think I will. Ideal day in the life. I would probably wake up at like 8
Yeah, that's actually that's solid.
Yeah,
solid. Not too early, not too late.
Early, not too late. And then I think go to the West End markets with some friends.
Yeah.
And actually no, first I would wake up at 8 and then I'd go to a Pilates class with some friends.
That's nice.
Which is what I've been into at the moment. And then go to the markets, grab a coffee, grab a pastry, maybe grab some flowers for home, go home, see some friends, relax, do a bit of reading, and then go out for a really nice dinner with my friends and the people that I love. And then, go to bed.
That's
so
awesome.
Simple, kind of boring, but
wholesome.
Like wholesome, I guess wholesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hope you get to do some of that this holidays.
Thank you, so do I.
Yeah, sounds good. We're at the end of the podcast.
Awesome.
Want to say bye?
Goodbye.
Bye.